This series of Toastmasters Leadership Institute is a three-part series. This evening is the second, and next week we will be featuring another panel on the topic of making the dream work and your team work through the executive committee. And that's going to be next Tuesday evening. I'm really excited for that. The theme of this winter TLI is finishing strong. Why finishing strong? Well, we want your clubs to have a strong presence, strong connection with the community, also connections within the club and the members. We want strong numbers for membership, both retention and building wise. And we also want strong education goals. So we invite you to embrace our vision to be able to finish strong this period. I'd like to launch a poll. It's actually two different questions, just to kind of see who do we have here this evening. And I'd like to see what are our responses. For some of you, you just started this position in January 1, and some of you have been holding this position since July 1. So just kind of curious to see how long you've held this current position and how long you've actually been a Toastmaster as well. All right, those answers are coming in. Very exciting numbers here. So for the majority of you, 71% of you, this is not the first training that you've had since the summer. So welcome back. We're glad to have you. Very excited about those numbers. And then also, how long have you been a Toastmaster? Wow, the largest percentage here, 43% rather, is over 10 years. Less than 1 year, interestingly enough, is 22%. And then we have a whole smattering of the middle group from 8% to 15%, anywhere from 1 to 10. So we have a broad range of people here this evening. Thank you so much for answering our poll. The format for this evening is a panel discussion followed by a Q&A. So throughout the time, you can put your questions into the chat and we will try and address them. You may even hear the answers throughout the panel discussion. And then we're going to try and answer some of those during the Q&A as well. After that, we're going to go into breakout rooms. The breakout rooms are not specific to a specific officer role. It's a mixed group. Lots of different years of experience, as you just saw from the poll. And the breakout room facilitators are going to walk through just a sharing session of all of your great ideas, your questions, some troubleshooting, your worries, all of the things that have to do with membership building. We're very pleased that that's going to happen. We're going to close out this evening as a large group. We're going to close those breakout rooms at some point and then bring everybody back in for some closing remarks. So without further ado, I would like to introduce this evening's panel moderator, distinguished Toastmaster, Becky McGilton. Welcome, Becky.
Hello, Rachel. All right, everybody who's in for a treat this evening. I'm going to go ahead and explain what's going to happen here a little bit. Rachel's touched on most of it already, but I'm going to be looking to all of our panelists to reply to some questions, and they're going to get their time, allotted time. They've all been told how much time they get. And then we're going to see what we need to do to make sure we get all of the questions, all of your questions answered, because we want to make sure you leave this session with all of the ideas and then some to help your clubs grow and be successful. I do have 4 panelists with me tonight. And before we get into the actual panel discussion, I'm going to ask each of my panelists to briefly, 60 seconds or less, please share what roles, officer roles you might currently hold right now, and perhaps how long you've been in Toastmasters. I'll go ahead and I will start with Julie first.
Welcome, everybody. I have been a Toastmaster for 4 years. During the 4 years, I was Vice President of Membership and Secretary right now for 2 years.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Membership, right up our topic tonight. Awesome. Bobby, I'm going to call on you next.
Thank you, Becky. I have been a Toastmaster for going on 7 years as of March 31st of this year. Currently, I am serving in the roles of President, Sergeant of Arms, Vice President of Membership, and VPR, as well as Area Director.
Oh, geez, you're really taking it all on. All right. Edith, you're next.
Fantastic. Good evening, everyone. Edith Thinken. I am currently president for Hunters Creek, BPE for Bartow. And prior to that, I have been VP of membership as well.
And how long have you been in Toastmasters?
4 years.
4 years. Awesome. And then my last panelist tonight is George.
Hi there. I have been a Toastmaster since 2008. And this year I'm the Vice President of Membership of 3 clubs and the Vice President of Education of 1 club. So I'm keeping busy.
It sounds like it. I'll give a little bit about myself. I've been in Toastmasters since 2008 as well. So April 1st, April Fool's Day. I will be 15 years in Toastmasters, and over those 15 years, I have actually held every one of the officer roles at least once, some of them multiple times. And I think tonight, between our panelists and myself, we have all of the club officer roles covered. So we shouldn't have any problem speaking in terms of how each one of us is responsible and can help out with membership growth in our clubs. I am going to go ahead and start with somebody who is currently holding the VPM role this year for the first question. You'll all get your opportunity, so hold on. But Julie, how does each officer impact membership building?
That's an easy question to answer because all the officers have to collaborate, and not only the officers, but the Toastaholic members who have the enthusiasm to talk to anybody and everybody. It is just like when you go to a good restaurant and you are going to tell all your friends, hey, I went to a fantastic Indian restaurant yesterday, free, eat as much as you want during lunchtime, and it was fantastic. It is the same thing as a Toastmaster, either an officer or a member. You joined Toastmasters because they said that this is going to be a public speaking course, but it's much more than that. You actually learn communication skills, listening skills, leadership skills, networking with a lot of fabulous people. That's my answer for this question.
Thank you, Julie. Good perspective on the overall picture. I'm going to go to Bobby, since he actually has 4 different officer roles this year, and ask you to answer the same question. How does each officer impact membership building?
Thank you, Becky. How does each officer impact membership building? First, I think the key is 3 words: collaboration, commitment, and consistency on all parts for each officer. Let's just go through them really quick. Sergeant of Arms, being there, opening the meeting really quick, and even before opening the meeting, making sure that they greet the guests and making sure that they are comfortable. Second, our secretary, I may get these 2, our treasurer, making sure that when it is time to get them an application. Make sure that that process is seamless. No one wants to be around when or be a part of an organization that seems unorganized, disorganized. Secretary, making sure that the minutes are there and making sure that every member knows what has taken place. And when the guest sees that, they're going to say, this is an organization that I want to be a part of. Vice President of Public Relations, let me speed up here, making sure we get the marketing out and making sure that it is a great picture that people are seeing. Vice President of Membership, making sure that they are addressing each guest and making sure that the transition is seamless. Same thing with Vice President Education and President, greeting guests and making sure that everyone feels warm, and making sure that the Vice President of Education, making sure that the guests are involved quickly, or rather as a member once they become a member, and as a guest, making sure they reach out to them just to say hello and introduce who they are. All about comfort and consistency, commitment, and collaboration to make this an effort towards membership building.
Thank you for some very good input there from a little bit on each one of the officer roles. Thank you, Bobby. Edith, what's your perspective on how all of the officers impact membership building?
I will definitely build on what Bobby was mentioning. It's about giving a great experience when you have a guest. But before that, before you have a guest, you really have a little bit of a work to do that has to do with what Julie said. People need to be invited for you to give them a great experience. So it's a combination of bringing people in and making sure they engage immediately, when leaving them with the sense of, I want to sign up today, just because they fall in love with your club immediately. And George and I had an experience where we signed 4 members or 5 members in one single visit, and in the same day, in the same meeting. And we were like, wow, what did we do today? When you have those days, think about what was different. What was the topic? What environment did you create that make people say, wow, I want to stay here. What do I need to do? And make sure that you follow up with them immediately.
Awesome. And finally to you, George, what is your perspective on the impact the officers can make?
I was thinking back, I was in sales, and during my working time, I was in sales for 25 years. And I see the vice president of public relations like the marketing department of a company. And their goal is to make the potential customers aware of your business. Well, that's kind of what the VPPR does. They make people in this world aware of Toastmasters. They get them somehow to the club. And once they do that, then they turn them over to the sales department. And the sales department is really the vice president of membership. And then it's their turn to help bring them in and talk to them, find out what their goals are, selling reasons why Toastmasters is good for them. So those 2 roles are, I think, very important.
All right. So I think we got some really good perspective from around all 7 officers. I did hear a couple of common themes. Collaboration is important. Pay attention to what works, because if it works, you might want to repeat that. But I think the biggest takeaway is the fact that, yes, there is a vice president of membership, but it is not only their job to work on membership growth. Right. In addition to all 7 club officers, it's all of the members as well. It's a team effort to make sure your clubs grow and stay successful. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the second question, which is very, very much in line with the first question. And this time I'm going to start with George this time. How does each officer engage in membership building?
We all have our roles as let's say the president. Let me back up. I'm going to start with the sergeant at arms, because they are really the first greeter. in a physical world, when a new person walks in the door, it's typically the sergeant at arms that greets them and then brings them around and introduces them to everyone else. And then it just flows from there, almost flows right up the chain of command, right from there in a physical world, if I can stay with that, because once they become have decided that they want to become a club member, then you turn them over to the treasurer, or really the president themselves in their engagement sets the tone and is just welcoming in every way whatsoever. If I can go on a little quickly on the side, I remember going to a new church many years ago, and this one person was so welcoming, so engaging, that it caused my wife and I to just continue to go to that church forever. But that's the idea. We do the same in Toastmasters. We engage them right from the time they walk in the door and make them feel welcome.
Thank you, George. Very good input. Let's move to Edith for the same question. How does each officer engage in the membership building process?
Well, for me, the first role that any officer has to do is to portray the values of Toastmasters in everything we do. And that implies that we are at the service of those guests, that we are inquiring with integrity, and really sometimes we get guests that we might not be the best fit, and we might refer them to another club because of the times, the days, or whatever. Sometimes we just want to grab those people to our clubs to grow the membership, and be careful, because those are the ones you're going to be losing right away. I rather not to have it in my club, but to have it in Toastmasters, because membership growth is not just about our clubs alone. So let's talk about collaboration around clubs as well. And the other thing that is important is that it's almost like a lifestyle. It's almost like feeling proud that somebody came in to visit, and we want them to be part of it. Sometimes we're very comfortable with people who have been with us for a long time in the club, and we tend to sit in our corners with the person that we go every time to the meetings. And when you have a new person, they might feel left out. Be careful with that. Make sure that you're always questioning yourselves in your officers meeting, how much are we integrating the new people with the people that have been in the club for the longest?
All right, that's a very, very good, very valid point, Edith. Bobby, what's your perspective on engaging the membership building?
Thank you. I'm going to stay with those same three words of consistency, commitment, and collaboration. When you have a guest, let's just picture this. If you have a guest or several guests, they come into a room, rather it's on Zoom or a physical room. One of the things that usually happens is you might bring the guest to the president. If you're doing a good job, bring them to the different officers. How about engaging that guest and immediately making them feel that they're the most important person in the room, and following with Toastmasters pyramid, where the member comes first? Well, let's make the guest first. Bring a collaborative effort of bringing every officer over to that guest. Hi, welcome. This is our president. This is our this is our. So you go through each officer. It may feel a little overwhelming at first, but I know from experience that what is most felt is gratitude, and wow, all these officers are coming to me. And then the other side of it is making sure you engage that guest at the end of the meeting also. And as Edith was saying, letting them know, hey, if this isn't a good time for you, then we also would love to share with you other Toastmasters clubs and times and meetings that you can be a part of, because we believe in Toastmasters, which reaffirms the belief in the program, and not just, we just want you a part of this club.
All right. Thank you, Bobby. And Julie, do you have anything in addition to add?
I can hardly wait to share my experience. When I was a membership person, I used to go to my company's new hire orientation. Every Monday, they were hiring 50 people, and all the employee resource groups had a table, and there was Julie Salvo with the Toastmaster handouts and the Toastmaster magazines. Not only that, when I had my 2-minute speech to the crowd, I asked first, how many of you have ever heard about Toastmasters? And guess what? Only 3 or 4 people showed hands out of 50. But I said, if you come to my table, I can explain to you what a wonderful organization, a worldwide organization it is. I had a log sheet where I asked the people who showed up at my table to write their names and emails. And right after the new hire orientation, I went back to my computer and I sent invitation to them to our meetings. And this way we gained quite a lot of members. Back to you, Becky.
All right. Thank you, Julie. Once again, I think our panelists have done a really good job of demonstrating how each one of the different officer roles can help with engaging in the membership building process. Couple of key points that I picked up on, and Edith brought one of them. It's not so much important that they join our club. Yes, that's a bonus, but we want them in Toastmasters. That's the key thing. And then, of course, Julie's idea about reaching out, especially in a corporate club atmosphere. I know we struggle quite frequently with corporate clubs, and going to the new hire orientations is a perfect way of getting that first initial introduction to Toastmasters to those new hires. Sue, let's go ahead and launch our first poll, please. We're going to be launching a couple of polls as we go through the training. So let's go ahead and have that first poll.
And there are 2 questions involved, so don't forget to scroll down and see both of them, please.
Okay.
It's pretty stable right now, Becky. I'm going to end it.
That's fine. All right. I might have to put my glasses on to read these poll results. Awful small print. So as far as the role that's the most, it's fairly even. The most that we have here today is presidents, but we have anywhere from 14 to 20% across the board. And we actually have a couple of people who aren't a club officer, but maybe they're here so that we can pique your curiosity and your interest, and you'll jump in and sign up for an officer role next year. And where is it that we want to focus our attention on? It looks like the majority of the folks would like to learn a little bit more about education and how to really get the word out about our clubs by, becoming a vice president of public relations. All right. So let's go ahead and get back to our panelists again. And this time I'm going to I'll start with Edith this time. Let's let Edith go first. How is it that your club appeals to visitors?
How do we appeal to visitors? First of all, we keep track of every single visitor, and George is religious about it. Whether they visit 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, we keep them informed, keep them being nurtured, sending them information, sending them invitation. That's one way of appealing to them, because sometimes they might not make this meeting, but maybe 2 or 3 weeks, they might come back. In person or on screen, we make sure, like probably everybody does, we make sure that they are always participating. They tell us the reason why they come and all of those things. But one thing that I think we do different is that after the meeting, somebody stays close to that person to enhance the conversation on the one-on-one. Because it is at the one-on-one moment. Remember, most of the people will come because they need to speak in public. So not always they open up when you say, what brought you to Toastmaster? And here you are. I say, well, I don't want to talk out there because that's why I came here, because I don't want to talk on the microphone. But when you are on the one-on-one on that personal level and you do that emotional connection with them, everything shifts. There they open up with yourself. So we make sure we create those body systems, so to speak.
Okay, thank you, Edith. Great input. George, you're up next. Do you have anything? I'm taking it that you and Edith are in the same club, or at least one club in common.
We are. We're in Hunters Creek Toastmasters.
Awesome.
He's my boss.
How is it that your club appeals to visitors?
I'm involved with Toastmasters.
Okay.
You know, I'm thinking back, I like stories, and I'm thinking back, I joined Kiwanis once upon a time, and my very first meeting, I walked into the lunch, and I was going to take a seat at the table, and the guy says, oh, that's for John. You can get a seat over at that table. That didn't make me feel welcome at all. That's one thing we want to avoid at Toastmasters, really make them feel welcome. But one other thing I want to bring out, and as Edith said, that we always do, we catch their email. And I've gotten, got about at least 100 people on that email list over time. And what I'll do from time to time is send them an email. If I haven't seen them, let's say 6 months, I'll send them a short email that just says, are you still interested in Toastmasters? That's all I say, and no more. And you'll be surprised at how many people are still interested in Toastmasters. They just haven't had the chance to come, but they want that email coming to them because they want to come. But so keep doing it. If you've got a list, ask that question every now and then. I think you'll find it very helpful.
Sounds like follow-up is a key there.
Mm-hmm.
Julie, same question to you. How do you appeal to visitors? Julie.
Are you asking me?
Yes, Julie, sorry.
Oh, good. Listen, as a secretary, of course, I always take a note of the visitor's name and email. And in case the president or the membership wants to get the information, I am always ready. But let me tell you something about myself and my experience. Originally, I joined one club. Now, I visited quite a lot of clubs because of the program we have, the ambassador program. And I keep getting emails from them after I just visited once. So guess what? By now, I am a member of 4 clubs and a coach of the 5th one. And we do the same thing. We send invitations to the people who have ever visited and the ex-members too. And occasionally we even renew membership. We have members who renew the membership or join our clubs. So I encourage you to do the same.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Bobby, you're the last one for this question. How is it that your club appeals to visitors?
Well, I'll try and stay general. When it comes to appealing to guests, I believe that the first part of it, and it's a couple of different parts to it. So the first part is, of course, making them feel welcomed, like George was saying. So making them feel comfortable when they walk in the door or they enter the Zoom room. And then second is one of the ones there is often overlooked is have a wonderful meeting. A fantastic meeting is a great way to appeal to the new guests or guests who've been there several times, especially those, because then they see the consistency that takes place in the collaboration and the commitment that you have to being, or rather the Toastmasters program. The third step is what was also mentioned earlier, the follow-up. Immediately afterwards, either making sure that either vice president of membership, public relations, or whoever, knowing that there is one person, and it's important to only have one at least, to reach out to that guest shortly thereafter via email or text, whatever their preferred method is, and you find that out during the meeting, and just reach out and say, thank you for coming. We hope you will come again. And here's some additional information about Toastmasters and our club. And you make sure you put your website and any contact information on there. So I think those three parts is the way that you appeal to a guest and hopefully transition them into a member.
All right, thank you. I wanted to add something from my own perspective because it's something that I've just picked up over the years. If we can sell them on the what's in it for them, that's how we appeal to our guests and our visitors so that they become members. We have to sell them on what it is that they're going to get and what they're going to gain out of their Toastmasters journey. And when we do that, that just makes that conversion process so much easier. So that's just something that I've always kept in my mind, is really drive home what's in it for them. All right. Did you want to add something, George? Yes.
Yes, to follow up on Bobby's point, in terms of following up. I came across the club in California, and I had gone to it, believe it or not, a TLI out there. And this one particular club, and Edith knows this story, because they told me that the president of that club will write a personal thank you and mail it to the guest from that week. And I've given the cards to Edith. So you get the Toastmaster thank you cards, or the blank cards.
Yeah.
But they said that they have 90% of the guests sign up because of that card that they send to the person, that the president of the club sends to the person. So the follow-up is important.
Yes. Yes. It sounds
Especially from Madam President.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So sounds like once again, we have some really good ideas that have come out. I'm hoping you're all taking lots of notes and getting ready to share your experiences when we get into that Q&A portion. Let's go ahead and go through our next question. What is it that we can do to incentivize our visitors to join our various clubs? And this time we're going to give Bobby the first shot at answering the question.
Sure. Thank you, Becky. I think actually you hit the nail on the head earlier in your previous statement about letting the guests know what's in it for them. That's the best incentivizer. I mean, we can show someone a beautiful house that someone else lives in. Sure. We can show someone a wonderful organization. However, when we really make their eyes open wide, as well as their minds, hearts, and yes, wallets for paying for membership, is by saying, this is what you will get out of it. This is how you will advance. These are the different things that are different ways, rather, that Toastmasters, this program, this process, this proven process will make you an even better person professionally as well as personally. I think that is one of the best ways, if not the best way, to incentivize a guest towards becoming a member.
Okay, thank you, Bobby. Edith, what's your perspective on incentivizing visitors for joining?
I mentioned before that after we have a visitor, we normally do this one-on-one. Everybody cannot take one of the visitors. One of the things that we need to be mindful in communication is that listening is the most important part when we are communicating. And listening to what brought them here and making that connection really helps for us to bring that cause a little later and say, you mentioned that you wanted to grow on this and that, right? I'm not coming from my selling points of why Toastmaster can be a great gift for you, which is a great approach, but sometimes I come better from what is it that they were looking for. I'm reminding them that is what they can find in us. So listening for that intelligence that we need to gain. What is it that you're here for? And making sure that you listen much more than you're talking with them, because people say, oh, wow, this is not just about the speaker. These people are trying to understand me and understanding my needs. And that's very, very key.
Good point. I like that, listening versus talking. Very good point. George, what do you think about ways to incentivize visitors?
I'm going to put on my sales hat again. Part of it is, of course, giving them the personal attention. So that way they feel like you're developing this conversation with them, and it's all about them, truly. But at the same time, you're going to remind them of their future leadership skills, their future communication skills, and perhaps even networking. But all of those 4 things, I guess, will come together to incentivize them to come back next week or next time we do meet. If I may, one other thing that comes to mind, Edith knows this story too. We have what we call sister clubs, where you can visit this club or that club. But of course, any club you can go visit for free, right? But we promote that. We incentivize them just by telling them we have these sister clubs. Here's their hours and their link and how they can go visit them too. We're not afraid to lose them, but it helps get them to become a Toastmaster. That's.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. And Julie, what's your perspective?
I think the best person who can incentivize is Pim Popart. She actually says to the visitor, I am pretty sure you want to join right away. Here is a form, and I'll talk to you after the meeting, and we will fill it out and bingo. Now, Pim is a good example. She joined Toastmasters because she wanted to learn English. And by now, she had all the jobs, leadership positions ever. Now, this really tells me and everybody else that joining Toastmasters for your reason, what is in it for you, just like Becky was saying, you can practice anything in a safe environment because we are not criticizing, we are helping, we are mentoring, we are coaching. So this is a safe environment. If you join, let's say, a health club because you want to lose weight, you have to stick with it. So if you stick with Toastmasters, you will get what you want to get out of Toastmasters. Back to you, Becky.
Thank you, Julie. So it sounds like oftentimes when we think of incentivize, we always want to put a monetary value to it. But in Toastmasters, you don't necessarily need to put a monetary value on it. You just really need to sell the benefits. What is it you're going to gain? And that in itself, if you do a good job of that, that's really going to help you a long way of turning those visitors and getting into guests into visitors and into members of the club. It's that whole process. Was it from visitor to guest to member? I forget what that old pamphlet used to be, but it's a very good way to think about it. Just those little things that you can do that really will go a long way. So let's go ahead and launch our second poll now, please. I have a couple more questions, or at least one more question. I forget if this one had 2 or not. Just one question.
The next 2 just have one question each.
Okay. And lots of responses, which is a good thing.
All right, the results are on the screen.
All right. So looking at the results, it looks like most of the folks feel that using social media and our professional networks are actually the biggest method that is used to attract new members. What I find it's very interesting is that, well, I guess you could call former members, but current members, word of mouth, they're not even listed there. I still believe, to this day, I still believe that Toastmasters is the best kept secret. We just don't get the word out enough about what Toastmasters can do for all of us.
Mm.
All right, so let's get to our last couple of questions here. And this time we're going to start with Edith. And the question this time for this go around is, what types of marketing attracts visitors?
I agree with the social media and all of that. We need to combine that with the success stories of our members. And that's where, going back to how each officer and how each member in the club can really help a membership building. If you don't know the story of the person who's sitting next to you, how did they started there? What was the journey? I love listening to your stories. Every time that I come across a Toastmaster, I want to hear, how did you start it? What brought you to Toastmaster? And what are you doing today? And it's amazing the kind of journeys that we learn about people. And those are the stories that we should be putting in our social media, rather than we meet at this time and that's necessary so people can show up. But nothing inspires me more than knowing the story of a Bobby or a Felicia or of a Becky or someone, and say, well, when I started, I didn't even want to talk, or pimp apart, right? And when you hear that story, you say, oh, then I can do that too. So that combination of our members and publication on that social media, I think is probably the next step that we need to think about.
Okay.
A little bit more.
All right. So George, what do you think are the most effective types of marketing to attract visitors?
You're asking the salesman?
Of course.
Well, actually, I have two quick stories out of District 26, which is Colorado. And one is Instagram. I had attended a TLI where this club explained how they used Instagram to start following people near a coffee shop nearby where they met. So they followed all the people that were following the coffee shop. And ironically, the coffee shop people that they started following followed them back, the Toastmaster Club. Then they announced that they wanted to have an open house. 86 people came to the open house. That's amazing. I'd like to have 86 come to an open house. The second story is again from District 26, where a particular Toastmaster used the app called Nextdoor. I don't know if you know Nextdoor, but she promoted she promoted Toastmasters using Nextdoor and was able to start an entirely new club in 1 month with 30 members using Nextdoor.
Wow.
So you can do it. Social media is out there.
Yeah, there are a lot of tools out there. Absolutely. So Bobby, what do you think are the best types of marketing material to use?
Tony Robbins say,
Your sound is really choppy there, Bobby. We can't hear you at all right now.
Try it again. You're unmuted.
okay, can you hear me?
No.
Man, breaking up.
No.
Okay, let me try some things.
Okay, let me go ahead and ask Julie while you try to work out your audio, and then we'll come back to you, okay? So Julie, what do you think are some good types of marketing to use to attract visitors?
Well, I will tell you one thing that I just heard yesterday from a California team. The lady said, who is the president, that we don't advertise on social media because we are a large club, but anybody who joins or visit finds our website attractive. And that's how we get new members, through our attractive website. Now, that is also something that I don't think many clubs have, but it's a very valuable venue that we could use, the website.
Yes.
What else? I know that the word of mouth that Becky says it was not listed on the survey, but I know that the older generation don't even use social media, but they tell each other and family members, and we have quite a few people who joined their father or son or daughter. That's wonderful.
Okay, thank you, Julie. So Bobby, did you get your audio fixed?
Tell me.
No,
Still
no.
not coming through.
No, it's not coming through at all. It's really choppy.
Okay, so just I'm going to shut down and come back in.
Okay, all right. Okay,
I'll let you back in.
okay, all right. So let's go ahead and we'll go on to our final, excuse me, our final question here. And we'll start with George this time.
Okay.
And you've already touched on this a little bit, but we just want to reiterate it. So everybody make sure they take those good notes. How do you follow up with visitors?
A couple ways. Of course, you remember my note card story.
Mhm.
That's one. But you gather their information, all of it.
Mhm.
And yes, I put them on a mailing list, the visitors, but at the same time, I mail them personally, send a personal email, not just once, but numerous times. I remember I go to a club, Celebration Speakeasy, and I go to that club because Terry, the president of the club, I think, or one of the officers, she sends me a personal email and asks me to come to the meeting. And that means a lot. If somebody just sent a broadcast email, come to our meeting next week, I might not do it. I probably won't do it. But if you send me a personal email, then that means a lot. And I give it strong consideration. I think people who visit us feel the same way.
Okay. Julie, is there anything that you can add to that you might do differently in your club to follow up with your visitors?
I know that there are people who don't like to get emails because they get thousands of emails, but they prefer phone calls.
Mhm.
And personal touch is my way of handling visitors. I think that you have to get a feel what the person is willing to respond to. That is my experience, but follow-up is always necessary. Many times people say, I came again because I like the way how you followed up, and others don't come at all because they say they never called me, they never kept in touch with me. I know several of these cases.
Okay. All right. Bobby, do we got our audio working now?
Hopefully.
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome.
I'm going to give you a bonus because I'm going to let you give your input for the last question. And then I'm going to ask you the current question that we're working on. So what types of marketing material do you think works best for visitors?
Thank you. As I was saying earlier, Tony Robbins, he really encourages immediate, massive marketing. And that means you want to be diverse. So I believe in the social media. I think it's great. Much like what Julie was saying earlier, though, or rather Edith, it's not just about the times the meeting take place, but how about just a short video? I think Maria did a great job at teaching us that last year and showing us how to make it happen. A short 60-second video, sharing your story or giving your thoughts. Then also, of course, it's not just about Facebook, but all the different variations or mechanisms within social media. And then, of course, the word of mouth from the members, former members, hopefully more members and former, because if you're former for a reason, And then also utilizing those pamphlets, leaving them in your doctor's office, your dentist's offices, in your break rooms, what have you. And through advertising, marketing, through every available way that you know, without being aggressive, having an aggressive approach, but not being aggressive in how you approach, meaning just having it there for someone to see it. I think it's the best way, by just simply being diverse and aggressive, immediate, massive marketing. And if they see it, sooner or later, they'll come to you.
All right. Thank you, Bobby, for that input. I'm glad we waited. Now we'll reset your clock and we'll give you an opportunity to answer the current question, which is, how is it that you follow up with your visitors?
I think the importance lies on the visitors. One of the things that I believe most clubs do this at the beginning, they give the visitor or guest an opportunity to speak and share maybe why they came to Toastmasters and how they got there. And throughout that meeting, whether on Zoom or in person, you're going to get their email, whichever their preferred method of contact is. And that's what you want to use. And we want to be sure to use that and be sure to ask that question, not just, do you have an email or put your email here, but what is your preferred method of contact if you don't mind us contacting you? And asking that question actually goes a long ways as well in assuring that contact, once you make that contact, you get an answer. A lot of people don't look at their emails, like Julie was saying, and they want you to text, or they prefer, well, just put the information here on Meetup, Facebook, what have you, and I'll get the information. Some people are like that. And we have to be sure to accommodate and be adaptable in our approach when it comes to following up. And those are my thoughts. Thank you.
All right. And Edith, you get to wrap it up for this question.
Oh, that's great.
What really makes it for you for following up on visitors?
Thank you. The two most common questions that we ask visitors or guests in our clubs, as an ambassador, I hear too all the time. What brought you to our club today? And at the end, the second question that we typically ask is, what was your experience today? Well, how do you feel? Or what do you think? But the thing that we don't do, and the worst that can anybody do, is to ask for information that you're not going to use ever. How about you making notes of that information? And with that information, you follow up. When you came to our club, you said that you wanted to, and you liked about us this. We would like to see you again to see how we can enhance that experience that you once have. Use the information that you're asking, because if you're not going to use it, why would you ask for it?
Okay.
That's probably the most significant hint I can give right now.
Awesome. So we got some really good key things that I picked out just from our four panelists. And first off, ask how is it that you want to be contacted? Because you're right. Many of us, we get inundated with the emails and we simply don't have time to look at every email. Some of us prefer phone calls, some prefer texts. You really do need to find out what it is that is going to resonate with each visitor, because that's what's going to keep drawing them back. And then to Edith's point, why ask them questions if you're not going to do something with that information? I never really thought about that before, but you're right. We always, what brought you here? And did you enjoy the meeting? But how many of us actually take the time when we send a thank you message out or do a follow-up that we actually go back and we use that information? So that is a very, very good point, and perhaps something that's a lesson that we could all take away from today's training. Okay, we have one more poll to launch. Sue, I think if you would go ahead and launch our last poll.
All right, I closed it.
All right.
It stopped, Becky.
Okay, so it looks like almost 50% of our people here tonight for our training say that it's the personal invite is the most effective way. And then after that, it's having special events and using your social media. I find it a little interesting that using the Toastmasters membership building campaigns, we don't find that very effective. That kind of makes me chuckle a little bit, because you would think that we're all working 3 times a year to try to do stuff during those membership building campaigns, but we aren't finding it very effective. Very interesting. So, all right, well, that is the end of our questions for today. How am I doing on time?
You can
I
begin the
have some,
Q&A.
Becky,
Yeah.
if you need extra time, I've got some that were in the chat, so let me know.
Yep, that's what I was saying. We'll go ahead and move into the Q&A. I was just, if I have extra time for the Q&A, that's what I was asking for, basically. So yes, let's go ahead and let's address the ones that are in the Q&A first that perhaps haven't been answered. So go ahead, Sue.
Alexis asked, how do you all stay in communication with guests? Is this through personal email, the TLM communication systems, or do you have an email that you established as a club?
Does one of our panelists want to take that response on? I mean, I'm happy to answer, but if somebody wants to take that on.
I'll go ahead.
Okay, Bobby, go ahead.
I think it's important to go to how the guest was brought into the meeting. If it was a personal invite, then perhaps the person who did the personal invite, unless they give a really good handoff, if you will, to the vice president of membership. But otherwise, I think that just reaching out through, if you have a club email, then you can use that if you want to kind of keep it impersonal. But looking at Toastmasters, impersonal probably isn't the best way to go.
Okay.
Your
Anybody
question
else
was
want to add to
how
that?
do you follow up and get them more involved right away? Becky?
Oops. Sue, can you go ahead and repeat the question then?
The original question?
Yes.
The
Yeah.
original question is, how do you all stay in communication with guests? Is this through personal email, the TLM communication systems, or through an email you have established as a club?
Now, may I speak to that point though?
You
Yeah.
sure may.
Okay. Another way, I'm giving you hints here. Another way is using Free Toast Host. You don't have to be a member per se to be a user of Free Toast Host. So if you have someone that's really enthusiastic, you start the email process back and forth to start to get them involved in Free Toast Host as well as Toastmasters. So that way, yeah, yes, you're using email, but you've done it in a different way. So that way they get more involved. And then, of course, I'm waiting for them to sign up and become a Toastmaster, but that's a good way to get them more involved as a follow-up.
And as a, just, I don't want to say brutally honest, but just to answer the question in its entirety, yes, any of those modes. I mean, you have to find what works best. That's the beauty of Toastmasters, is that every club has its own personality and its own way of doing things. Some of them strictly use their club website, or an email that they created for their club. They might just rely on any emails from the membership roster or any information that you provide. So it really depends on the club. So it could be any of those methods to try to follow up with people. Yeah, Edith, go ahead.
Becky, one thing that is important that we have not covered in building membership is our members in our clubs needs to start getting trained in what is inclusiveness. And the reason for that is because the different styles of the different generations, and we have some of us that are over 40. Over 40, I'm not going to say anymore. we might have our ways of communicating and all of that, right? And also the different, we know all about diversity, but when we're talking inclusion, it's a little bit much more than in being invited to the party. And I have not heard too many clubs yet doing training on diversity and inclusion and all those things that are so important for members to be aware of, in the sense that when they receive a guest, sometimes it might be rough in the wrong side because we don't know how to manage the situation. And it's very, very important that we get trained on those areas so we can communicate with them better. We can facilitate a better experience. And some of those diversity might be even physical impediments, as well as diversity of race, ethnicities, and all of those things. But especially on the ages, we have so much diversity these days and ways of thinking. And sometimes we take paternalistic approach to the younger generation and we, talk like parents to the younger. And we need to make sure that we start raising the bar when it comes to diversity and inclusion.
Yes. I would agree 100%. All right.
I have a contribution I'd like to contribute. I'm Chuck Rabeau, DTM. Been in
Okay.
Toastmasters since 74. Received
Okay.
my DTM in 79, October the 5th. Number 809. I think we should share or give the prospective members our benefits, IOI, that we personally received, ROI, return on investment. You get what you give, and it's all dependent on how much you invest as to what your return on your investment is, and share that with a prospective member. I find it works, and I take Toastmasters to prison. I've started over 34 gavel clubs in prison throughout the state of Florida. So for whatever it's worth, that's my 2 cents.
All right.
Thanks
Well,
for
thank
listening.
you. You bet. All right. Sue, another question from the chat? If not, we'll open it up for questions.
Got one. I had it all buried. Let me pull it up. I've got a little too much on going on my screen right now. Here we go. Good question is, how do you recruit for an advanced club?
Ugh.
And this was from whoever was Zoom user, and they've changed their name. So thank you, Zoom user, for changing the name and the question.
All right. So, I am a member of an advanced club, and it is a challenge. Do we have somebody who's a member of an advanced club that would like to offer some input, either from our panelists or from somebody who's in the audience?
We have in the audience Stan and wife, and they are doing a fantastic job right now. Gail also did a great job, but I would like Stan to talk a little bit about what he's doing, because he's doing a great job on that.
Well, thank you for that opportunity. I appreciate it very much. We're Keynotes and More Advanced Toastmasters Club, and we're blessed to have some really good Toastmasters here that create a foundation. We have an open house that's coming up. Our last open house worked real well for us. We've got another great open house coming up that we're having Dennis speak at. And I know he's on this call. We would greatly appreciate that. Beth speak at, and Deborah. And there's some key people that you want to invite. But as we're sitting here also, it really goes down to, I'm actually right here. I'm making a list of people that I need to make telephone calls to invite to our open house. So while we're sitting here and thinking about this, I'm thinking about people who have dropped out of clubs. Okay. I'm thinking about people that I already know that are active, but need to be in another club. And so even though we do want to use social media, we are trying to use some social media. It's really that personal telephone call that's going to make a difference. I was talking to a lady this afternoon who hasn't been in Toastmasters for a number of years, and she's excited and going to be coming Tuesday night. So I think it's really those personal telephone calls that's going to make a difference, and each one of our members reaching out. Okay. Now, the other challenge we have with an advanced club is to determine how to really make it an advanced club. And so we try to be good listeners in that aspect.
Okay, I see a couple of hands up, but before I go to call on you, the question came up, what is an advanced club? So I'd like to go ahead and just answer that first. An advanced club is typically you're either having a specific focus area that you're trying to concentrate on, and the majority of the time there's a membership requirement. For instance, maybe you have to have 2 levels completed in your current path before you can become a member. So therefore, it requires that you're a dual member. And the majority of the advanced clubs work that way. I know that here in District 84, we have the Find Your Funny. I think that's considered an advanced club, and their focus is all on humor. We have, I think it's Lens Crafters, and their focus is all on photography. So they're very focused on what you're going to gain from being a member of that club. So that, I just wanted to answer that question. And now I will go ahead and go to Pamela, who has her hand up.
Thank you, Becky. I'm a member and founder of Lens Masters Advanced. Everyone is a photographer because everyone carries a cell phone. We teach people who are Toastmasters how to be better photographers. Now, how does that work with Toastmasters, you're asking? I would say, how many of you know how to talk to people at a gallery opening of your pictures? How many people can address the public with what your photography portfolio is? This is where we go. This is why we teach people who carry a camera everywhere to be a better photographer and a Toastmaster, hand in hand, because it is so important to communicate with more than just your pictures.
Okay, awesome. I saw another question that popped up in the chat. How many members does the typical Toastmasters Club have? I don't know that I could give the answer to that. I know that ideally a club wants 20 members so that you can have good quality meetings. It takes 13 people really to have a really good meeting where nobody has to wear multiple hats. But what the actual number average is across Toastmasters, I don't really know. So I don't know that I could answer that question directly. Okay, we have another hand up. Lisa, you have a question?
Hi, Becky. I don't have a question as much as just a caution. I think we're all good at being focused on when we have a new person visiting our club. But I think the caution that we need to have is that once they join, we don't drop them from the level of feeling special and everything, because we're on to the next new fresh blood, because otherwise it's a bait and switch. So we have to make sure that we've made them feel special enough that they want to join, but also continue to make them feel special, continue to be involved and invested. I guess this has more to do with retention, but invested in their success going forward 6 months later, as we did the very first time that they visited or when they first joined. And I think we have to always be mindful of that as officers.
Yes, that's a very good point, because all too often we're so excited about getting them in, and then we move on to the next new person and we forget about them. And then dues renewal time comes around and they're leaving because we've lost our focus on them. They don't feel like they're part of the group anymore. So we're almost out of time here. And I wanted to I made note of something as we were talking on one of the questions. And it was about when we were talking about ways to market. And somebody was talking about the videos, and I don't remember exactly who it was, but I like to call them toastimonials. They're not testimonials, they're toastimonials, because you talk about what it is I think it was maybe Edith that brought it up. What it is that brought you to Toastmasters? Do that 60-second video. One of the clubs that I belong to, we just recently did that and we recorded our testimonials. I'm not exactly looking forward to hearing mine because I do terrible on those things, but I'm excited too to see how it turns out and see if it actually does anything for our club because we're an advanced club as well. So I'll go ahead and I'll ask the question. Marjane's got her hand up, but we might run out of time and we might get shifted away, but go ahead and ask your question. Uh-oh, Marjane took her hand down. I guess she didn't want to ask her question.
Sorry. Yes, sorry. I just forgot to unmute.
Okay.
Not really a question, but more of just commenting on member retention. So the Advanced Club, Find Your Funny, one of the things that we've done is assign humor buddies. And this can work for other clubs. It doesn't have to be a humor buddy because I'm using it in my home club, Leadership Toastmasters. We have mentoring buddies. But what we do is we pair up just randomly for 2 months and then we switch. And it keeps it fresh. And we're getting, I think, some really good success out of, keeping our members engaged that way.
So awesome. All right. Thank you for that. Sharing that, Marjane. We are very shortly going to be going into our breakout rooms. And I want to encourage everybody to keep in mind what we've discussed here in this panel discussion today. And when we get into our individual breakout rooms, we'll have time for more questions. And this will be really your opportunity to share as well, share your ideas. And let's just work together and do that collaboration that Bobby keeps referring to. And let's see if we can make all of our clubs finish strong like Rachel wants us to.